Hi, welcome to Parenting on the Go. I'm Brooke Allen, and joining me today is Kristen Walters, social worker in the Walled Lake Consolidated School District, and Erin Lawson, psychologist in the Walled Lake Consolidated School District. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And so tell me what the difference is between a social worker and a psychologist.
Well, in the school setting, social workers are trained mental health professionals with a master's degree in social work who primarily work with kids with significant needs in the area of social skills, behavior skills, and emotional regulation struggles.
Okay, and how about psychologists?
Psychologists are uniquely trained members of school teams. We're educated in learning, mental health, and behavior. So we contribute similarly, but we can also take a closer look at learning and how the brain functions and how that affects learning.
Okay, so why do we need school psychologists and social workers? Are they so similar, or do you just work collaboratively?
We often work collaboratively, and we often work with students with special education needs. However, we also work with the general population at times. Today, there are so many students who have lifelong disabilities, who have unmet needs and struggle with just daily challenges navigating through the school system. And those are the students we're kind of there to support when they have additional challenges and needs along the way in the learning environment.
And while our roles do overlap quite a bit, psychologists participate in comprehensive evaluations when students are suspected of having a disability. Child find is an integral part of our job, since the law requires school districts to identify students with disabilities and then provide appropriate programming. So psychologists are particularly involved in the design and development of those programs for those students.
So an IEP, is that something, is
Yes.
that what you're talking
Yes,
about?
thank you for
Okay.
asking. An individualized education plan, which is a program for students who are identified with special needs.
Okay, and that's something you're both involved in?
It depends on the disability area, but yes, typically we are both involved in that.
Okay.
Typically, yes. Social workers are mandated for emotional impairment evaluations as well as autism evaluations. However, if a team or the school personnel identify a specific need in an area, they may bring the social worker in on a student with a learning disability if they have needs above just their learning in the social, emotional, or behavior areas.
And the psychologist, kind of the same thing then?
Yep, psychologists have certain areas that we are mandated to be part of as well. Mostly we're involved in all of the evaluations, however, unless it is sometimes a reevaluation and students don't require a whole bunch of testing or evaluation. Again, we just make our evaluations when we're revisiting concise and meaningful so that we can write a new plan for the next year.
Right, because the IEP is good for 1 year, I think, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So what about like the family aspect of this? Do you work closely with family as well?
We both usually work closely with families. I often see students more long-term on a direct basis, so individually or in groups, to work on a variety of skill deficits, like maybe they struggle with anger management or coping skills or self-esteem. So in those aspects, I'm trying to work often with families to help support those skill growth in the home setting, because it works best when we are kind of working holistically with students. Additionally, sometimes I'm a point person in the school for families of the students that I work with. So if they have a certain need or something's happening with the student that day, I may reach out to the family, or the family may reach out to me and say, my student needs a little extra support today. Can you check in with them or work on this area?
Okay, and then how about you?
Well, psychologists' role in schools differs from a clinical setting. So I don't provide ongoing therapy in the schools, but what I can do is provide crisis intervention and collaborate with other staff so that we can implement strategies that work for students, whether it's regard to learning or mental health. And then I also connect families with agencies and services outside of school, and often I'm a liaison for that. And basically I work in a consultative role a lot with administrators, teachers, social workers, and directly with students when they have significant needs.
So you're kind of on the front line and you're maybe a little bit behind the scenes.
Right.
Okay. So if a student or a parent needed you, how do they reach out?
Typically, they would contact the school to ask, the child's school to ask. At times, we often work with special ed, so they could also contact the special education department. But the quickest route would be just going through the child's school.
Okay, and then how about if there was, you mentioned crisis intervention, if someone was at that point or a student was at that point, they could find you?
Certainly, a parent can always reach out to the school and ask to have a conversation with their school psychologist or school social worker, and we can help guide them with what appropriate next steps might be.
Okay, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk to you and get to know the difference, because I think a lot of people out there don't really understand the difference between a social worker or a psychologist.
Right.
And students, you're both play a major role with our students, so thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching this episode of Parenting on the Go. And if you would like to look up more helpful parenting tips, you can visit the West Bloomfield Youth Assistance website at wbyouthassistance.org.